Hello everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for Monday's edition of Alaska Weather. First day of February 2021. I'm Dave Percy, meteorologist with the National Weather Service. I'll be hosting today's show. First up, hazardous weather graphic. A lot of lit up areas there. Still the wind chill warnings out for the greater Fairbanks area, central interior from Tanana on up into the Koyukuk Valley, Bettles, and the Yukon Flats. And that's out for tonight, possibly into tomorrow, and then also for the western Arctic coast, the central coast, wind chill advisory continues there until about midnight tonight. And both areas there, the wind chill warnings down to wind chill 70 degrees below zero. Otherwise, the Brooks Range there, eastern North Slope Brooks Range area, that's out for tonight for that's wind chill advisory, and also Ambler, northwest coast, Seward Peninsula, and the lower Yukon River Valley area, Galena, and on down toward Grayling, wind chill advisories there. Northern Kuskokwim Valley, Susitna Valley, Alaska Range, 40-mile country, wind chill advisories, wind chills 45 to 55 below tonight into tomorrow as well. Blizzard warning still out for St. Lawrence Island and the Bering Strait coast tonight. For continuing winds gusting 65 miles an hour, snow and blowing snow, zero, reducing visibilities to whiteout conditions at times. And otherwise, Bristol Bay winter weather advisory out. Let's see, that's out, begins later tonight and continues through 3 p.m. Tuesday. Anywhere from 4 to 8 inches of snow with gusty winds, and same thing for the Kuskokwim Delta. Yukon Delta also winter weather advisory, snow and blowing snow there. And over the northern panhandle, we've got winter weather advisories currently picking up moderate snow at Juneau, and actually that's now a winter storm warning for the Juneau area for until about midnight tonight for 6 to 10 inches of snow or for heavy snow. Otherwise, winter weather advisories for snow there across much of the northern panhandle with the exception of the coastal areas, anywhere from 4 to 8 inches possible before it ends later tonight toward, well, probably end after midnight for the become much lighter. And from there, going to the, let's see, satellite imagery, see a front coming in, big low pressure area out over the western and southwest Bering Sea, but north of Shimia there, and the front pushing eastward and weakening, beginning to weaken as it comes inland. You can see the clouds starting to break up a little and shear apart, but still a very tight gradient with that, and very strong winds occurring along the coast today out of the south from the Alaska Peninsula, especially the southwest coast. And then back to the Pribilofs, already behind the front there, warmer air coming up northward with those strong south to north winds. Otherwise, over in the interior, lighter winds as you get in toward the central interior more or less, but not too much lighter. But by comparison, they were lighter. And the North Slope, lighter winds as well. Cold temperatures there. Out to the Arctic coast, well below zero over much of the interior today. North of the Alaska Range, a little below zero into the afternoon for Susitna Valley and the Copper River Basin. And snow developing, low pressure there. Eastern Gulf of Alaska brought 1 to 3 inches, say, to Yakutat and Juneau so far. It's sort of tapered off of Yakutat, but Juneau on the increase there. They picked up... Well, let's see, Latuya Bay picked up about 6 to 7 inches of snow in the last 12 hours, with Yakutat and Juneau getting, say, 1 to 3 inches, and Petersburg picking about an inch with much lighter amounts elsewhere, especially down to the south. Otherwise, clear and cold temperatures, winds on the increase through the North Gulf Coast area, Thompson Pass, Prince William Sound area, and, of course, Valdez, as well as the Manuska Valley, into the Kenai Peninsula and Channel areas of the North Gulf Coast. Pretty strong winds occurring. And on the chart here, very tight gradient developing there over the northern panhandle with Thompson Pass seeing a peak wind gust today of 78 miles per hour so far, and Peterson Lagoon which is west of Resurrection Bay there, south side of the Kenai Peninsula. They had 72-mile-an-hour wind gusts out of the north, while in the Valdez had about 60-mile-an-hour winds from the northeast there. And winds on the increase. Lynn Canal, Eldred Rock seeing gusts about 60 miles an hour, as well as Manusca Valley, Palmer, peak wind gusts 60 miles per hour today, and also at Valdez. Otherwise, a little bit of snow shower activity up over the northeast interior areas there. And then along the coast, snow and blowing snow, St. Lawrence Island beginning to increase along the southwest coast. Strongest wind gusts there from the southeast, up to 84 miles per hour was a peak wind gust at Cape Romanzoff and Cape Newenham, farther to the south there. 75 miles per hour, and St. Mary's getting some strong winds as well, and over the Yukon Delta, 60 to 65 mile-an-hour wind gusts occurring there, with Unalakleet peaking out at about 55 miles per hour, and Cold Bay, with that low approaching the Alaska Peninsula, 56 miles an hour, with a fair amount of rain. At Falls Pass, they picked up 1¼ inches in the last 12 to 14 hours. Cold Bay just under an inch with about 0.8 of an inch, while St. George had about 1/4 inch of precipitation. Higher pressure dries it out. Light winds over the central Aleutians, Bering Sea, that moving eastward slowly into the Pribilofs now, and then picks this wind and snow shower activity back up toward the western Aleutians with the main low center. And looking at the forecast for tonight, we've got, again, the winter storm warning for heavy snow for the Juneau area, and the wind chill warning's out. As you can see, very tight gradient, continues to tighten up. Looking at storm force winds later tonight out of the north, sustained 50 knots, Lynn Canal through tomorrow, and very windy conditions from the Copper River Basin, eastern Alaska Range, right on up to the northwest coast. Winds lightening up though for the southwest coast. That front weakening, new low develops, moves to the Alaska Peninsula, and starts to spread some snow to Kodiak Island. Otherwise stays dry and clear, and again below zero, south central Alaska. And with the winds, the windier areas in the interior won't be as cold as the less windy areas, but still everybody will be well below zero. If not the actual temperature, then your wind chill will be about the same. Otherwise, best conditions look to be out over the eastern Aleutians into the Pribilofs. Light winds, mild temperatures there. And some scattered snow, rain and snow shower activity moves in with a weak trough into the west central Aleutians, with that low continuing to weaken back to the west-northwest. And then for Tuesday, that low south of the Panhandle slides southeastward to about Vancouver Island, and that's going to end the precipitation with staying windy and cold, especially over the northern half of the Panhandle, with especially the Lynn Canal. Winds on the decrease over the interior, but they're not going to end. They'll virtually end there over the southwest interior, that front pushing in, much lighter winds. Chance of snow moves into southern Cook Inlet, Kodiak Island, Iliamna, Kamishak Bay, across the Kuskokwim Valley to Yukon Delta into Norton Sound. St. Lawrence Island see some snow, but winds will be much lighter. High pressure and fair skies, eastern Aleutians, light winds, Alaska Peninsula and the Bristol Bay, and cold Arctic high pressure controls the central northern interior through Wednesday. Otherwise, a new system into the southern Gulf of Alaska from the northeast Pacific spreads warmer temperatures and more moisture into the southeast coast, and not so strong front brings some rain and possible gale force winds into the Adak-Atka area. Light winds, southwest coast, St. Lawrence Island, Bristol Bay under weak high pressure, and more clouds and the risk of some snow shower activity for Cook Inlet, chance of snow Prince William Sound. Lows for tonight, 10 to 30 for the Panhandle, coldest north, warmest south, 25 to 30 below in areas of the Copper River Basin, and 10 to 20 below Kenai Peninsula, Manusca, Susitna Valley. Otherwise single numbers for the Homer area, mid-20s Kodiak, and anywhere from 35 to 45 below eastern and northern interior, right out to the Arctic coast, and call it 10 to 20 below for the Seward Peninsula, except for Nome at -2, and single numbers in lower teens for the southwest coast. And highs Tuesday afternoon, lower teens northern Panhandle, upper 30s down to the south, and in the lower teens, south central Alaska staying below zero, Copper River Basin well below zero, north of the Alaska Range, west of the Alaska Range near zero to near 20 out toward the coast, mid-30s, mid to upper 30s for the Bering Sea and the Alaska Peninsula Aleutians. And lows Wednesday morning, down single numbers there towards Skagway, Haines, and about 10 for Juneau. Otherwise, mid-20s, the central coast, and down toward Klawock and Ketchikan. Still cold, well, 25 to 30 below Copper River Basin, near zero of the Kenai Peninsula, a little below for the Susitna Valley, and about 15 to 20 below for the Nikolai-McGrath area. 35 below, or 25 to 35 below for the Fairbanks area, and then 40 to 45 below from the eastern Brooks Range to the Arctic coast, and out west near 30 for the Pribilofs, lower 30s the Aleutians, 40 showing up over the Panhandle for the highs Wednesday afternoon, mid-teens now for the Anchorage area to Kenai, but near 30 for Homer, and staying below zero in the northern interior, and near 40 out over the central Aleutians.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Moving on to flying weather. Good VFR from the Arctic coast all the way down Cook Inlet through the Barren Islands, North Gulf Coast, until you get to, say, Icy Bay or so, Elfin Cove, marginal VFR, all of the inside waters, maybe some IFR also for Prince of Wales Island from Port Alexander on down to Craig. And IFR creeping into southern southwest Kodiak Island, Alaska Peninsula. IFR pushing inland there along the southwest coast and extends back to St. Matthew Island to St. Lawrence Island. Marginal VFR, Bering Sea Aleutians, with some VFR for the Fox Islands. And then in the afternoon, that becomes, the IFR pushes across the Kuskokwim Valley right into the Alaska Range and extends back across the Yukon Delta and the lower Yukon River Valley area to St. Lawrence Island, but just barely reaching, looks like around Nome, otherwise Seward Peninsula on up, much of the Arctic coast VFR, possible marginal VFR over toward Barter Island, Kaktovik, and maybe over the eastern interior, Eagle, down toward the extreme eastern Alaska Range, but Copper River Basin, Cook Inlet VFR, Prince William Sound, and improves quite a bit over the Panhandle, some marginal VFR down south, and some areas of pretty good VFR out over the Bering Sea and the Aleutians. And then for the day Wednesday morning, VFR, Atka Island eastward across Nikolsky on Alaska, Dutch Harbor, Alaska Peninsula right up into Bristol Bay and the Southwest Mountains, part of the Kuskokwim Valley. IFR across the northern Kuskokwim Valley to the western and northwestern Alaska Range there, extending back across the lower Yukon River Valley to Norton Sound, southern Seward Peninsula, St. Lawrence Island. And then a big area of VFR holds to the north there, but looks like marginal VFR a little bit on the increase for the central and eastern Beaufort Sea coast, and marginal VFR central Panhandle as well as much of the central and north coast to Yakutat. Next system pushing a band of IFR into the southwest Bering and the western Aleutians. That edges eastward to Adak in the afternoon, narrows a little bit there with marginal VFR to Atka Island. Pribilofs VFR, eastern Aleutians, Alaska Peninsula, Bristol Bay, Kodiak Island, VFR, and most of the Kenai Peninsula and most of Cook Inlet, VFR. Marginal VFR for Turnagain, Connect Arms, Matanuska Valley, and the Talkeetnas eastward across the Copper River Basin up into the 40-mile country. The band of IFR from Norton Sound eastward, cutting right over the Fairbanks area to about Chena or so, and then north of there, VFR, Yukon Flats, westward to the Noatak Valley, marginal VFR north side of the Brooks Range to the Arctic coast. Solid IFR Wednesday afternoon for the Panhandle, that extends into the offshore areas of the Gulf of Alaska from the Northeast Pacific. And for passes Anatuvik, VFR, Adigan, VFR, Lake Clark and Merrill, VFR, and look for becoming possibly marginal in the afternoon at some point. But looks like rainy will stay VFR the entire day, even though there'll be an increase in the clouds. And windy VFR, Isabel, same forecast VFR, as well as Mentasta, Tanita, VFR, and Portage, VFR. Chilcoot and White, VFR. Freezing levels, 2,000 feet, pushing northward. Some warmer air slipping up with that system pushing, with the southerly flow ahead of the frontal boundary there. So 2,000 feet comes up into Bristol Bay, about 2,000 to 4,000 across Kodiak Island, actually 6,000 feet right up to the Alaska Peninsula. At the surface just north of the Pribilofs and just on the south side of the Kenai Peninsula in along the coast of the Panhandle. And icing with that weakening system coming in, areas of isolated moderate rime icing possible, Kodiak Island, slipping possibly into central Cook Inlet on south, southern Kenai Peninsula, Kachemak, Kamishak Bays, back to St. Lawrence Island across the southwest interior. And then the next batch coming in towards Chimianatu late in the afternoon. Jet stream, strong northwest jet there right along the southeast coast, 120 knots, falling back to about 90 knots as general areas of cold upper low pressure continue over the northwest territories of Canada, and weakening ridging there off the western Arctic coast with southeast flow 75 knots across St. Lawrence Island, 95 knot westerlies for the western Aleutians, and 9,000 feet, northeast 40 for the north slope, and west 45 there south of Nunivak Island to the southwest coast. Stronger winds out west as high as 65 knots at 3,000 feet for the Shimiatu area. 70 knot east southeast winds there right across, it looks like the Seward Peninsula. And turbulence, moderate chop, a good chunk of the northwest interior right on down into the northern Copper River Basin for you.
Just as the sun is part of weather on Earth, it also affects weather in space. The sun creates solar wind by steadily releasing a flow of plasma particles in all directions around it. Sometimes the sun gives off a flash of light and X-rays. This is known as a solar flare. When massive bursts of particles explode into space, we call it a coronal mass ejection, or CME. When a CME is directed toward Earth, it hits the magnetosphere, the magnetic field around our planet that protects us. If the storm is large, we may even get to enjoy a light display in the sky called the auroras. In space, satellites may be damaged, and astronauts should take cover. On Earth, people do not feel any physical effects. We may lose electricity in some areas, polar flights may be rerouted, and satellite services may be disrupted. While these situations aren't ideal, they are rare and fixable. This is why we will continue to study the sun and its interactions with Earth and the solar system.
Longing for more space, open skies, and exotic travel? Then look up, about 30 to 600 miles straight up at the ionosphere, Earth's interface to space. Nestled far above the clouds but below outer space, this little understood destination invites you to explore its many features. Experience both the weather from Earth and the weather from space. Marvel at the ballet of radio waves and navigation signals, like GPS, leaping through this particle paradise. Sit back, relax, and take in the aurora, some satellites, and the International Space Station as they sail by. And you'll want your camera handy for one of the region's signature features, bright and colorful air glow. This daily show is made possible by the ionosphere's own swirling charged particles, because that's what the ionosphere is. It's all charged particles. During the day, enjoy the sea of particles, freshly energized by the sun. As the sun sets, this particle party relaxes and the air glow thins. Our quieter nightlife lets you gaze into clearer skies. The ionosphere is in constant motion, an amazing effect of space weather. Don't miss when solar storms rain down. The storm separates the particles even more, making this colorful region delightfully more dense in some places and stunningly sparse in others. And don't forget about storms from Earth below. Your weather from back home also stirs up this one-of-a-kind destination. Experience the unique beauty of every season, as changes in Earth's atmosphere, daily and annually, can create pressure waves, changing the ionosphere's shape and density. Venture to the equator, where our particles are packed in lush and thick. Cruise along a magnetic field line and see how the ionosphere's charged material also interacts with Earth's own magnetic field. Don't miss the superhighway of particles zipping out to space and back down to the planet. This unpredictable parade of charged particles can help you unplug and unwind. This is because the crowd of particles can garble the radio and satellite communications from home. The ionosphere welcomes you to discover more about this little-known region. After all, once you've explored this interface to space, who knows how much farther you'll be able to go.
When a star, bigger and more massive than the Sun, runs out of fuel at the end of its life, its core collapses while the outer layers are blown off in a supernova explosion. What's left behind depends on the star's original mass. A star roughly 10 to 20 times our Sun leaves behind a neutron star. A more massive star becomes a black hole. Unlike black holes, neutron stars are directly observable, usually as pulsars, the lighthouses of the cosmos. Discovered 50 years ago, they are the densest observable objects in the universe. Neutron stars compress up to twice the Sun's mass into a city-sized sphere. Matter is packed so tightly that a teaspoon of neutron star interior would weigh more than 1 billion tons on Earth. Still, the nature of the ultra-dense matter in the cores of neutron stars is unknown. Because neutron stars pack so much mass into such a tiny volume, they produce gravity strong enough to bend the light they emit, distorting their appearance in a way that enables the mass and size of the star to be measured. Scientists cannot reproduce the extreme conditions in and around neutron stars on Earth. They must look into the galaxy to answer decades-old questions about extreme matter and gravity. NASA's Neutron Star Interior Composition Explorer mission, or NISA, will make X-ray observations of neutron stars from its perch on the International Space Station. It will give astronomers more insight into these mysterious objects, helping determine what is under their surface. A multi-purpose mission, NISA includes a technology demonstration called Sextant. It will analyze NISA's observations to validate the use of rapidly rotating neutron stars as navigation beacons for travel in deep space throughout the solar system and beyond.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Today's sea ice analysis, not a lot different from yesterday. Looks like some thinning there along the eastern part of Kuskokwim Bay down around Cape Newenham due to the strong winds they've had today. So that's kind of tearing the ice up down in that area into Togiak Bay. Still a fair amount though, central eastern Bristol Bay. And some ice still making its way south of the Forelands in Cook Inlet with very slow increase occurring one day to the next. And coastal water forecasts, storm warnings for Lynn Canal tomorrow. North, sustained 50 knots, seas 10 feet. Gale warning, Stevens Passage with storm force gusts out of the north to 50 knots. And Clarence Strait, much lighter there, northwest at 20. And the south coast, southwest, or the south coast, north to northeast winds 20 to 25 knots. And some gale warnings on the north coast, where it'll be northeast 25 to 35 knots with 8-foot seas. Moving on to Wednesday, east 20 knots for the extreme north coast. Otherwise, north central coast there, southeast 25. Small craft advisories for west winds 20 to 25 knots there along the south coast. And much lighter winds in the inside waters now for the central and southern inside waters, south to southeast at 15 knots. Lynn Canal, winds coming down to 20 knots from the north. And for Prince William Sound, Tuesday, north winds 20 knots, seas 3 feet. Eastern North Gulf Coast, northerlies gust 45 knots out of Copper River Delta, otherwise northeast at 20. And pretty light winds for the western North Gulf Coast, down to 10 knots from the northeast, 15 for the Barren Islands. Gale warnings, Kamishak Bay, northeast 35 knots. Southern Cook Inlet, northeast at 30 knots. And north of Forelands, easterlies at 15. Northern Cook Inlet on Wednesday, north winds 10 knots, call it 20 knots there for Southern Cook Inlet. Winds coming down to 15 knots, Kamishak Bay. Northeast winds 20 knots for the North Gulf Coast and the Barren Islands with seas 7 to 8 feet, and light winds from the north for Prince William Sound and slight seas. And for the Kodiak Island area, small craft advisories, east-southeast 25 knots along the east side of the island to from Sitkinak to Castle Cape. Shelikof Strait, northeast at 30 knots with 10-foot seas. Bristol Bay, east winds 30 knots, seas 5 feet. And west-northwest winds 15 knots for the Alaska Peninsula with seas 7 to 13 feet. And then for Wednesday, north to northeast winds from Sitkinak to Cape Sarachev with seas at about 8 feet. And we've got east winds at 20 knots for the Bering Sea side of the Alaska Peninsula. Light northeast winds at 10 knots for Bristol Bay. Shelikof Strait, north 15. East side of Kodiak, northeast 20. Fox Islands tomorrow, not bad wind-wise, west to west-northwest, 10 to 15 knots. Seas running 8 to 14 feet. Adak and Atka, light winds also west 15 knots, 7 to 15 foot seas. Small craft advisories on Chitka Island, and then gale warnings for Kiska, Shimmy, and Attu. South winds at 40 knots. And then south 25 there, Shimmy to Kiska. And Amchitka now with the gales, southwest 40 knots, seas near 20 feet. Gale warnings back into the Adak Atka area as well, south 35 knots. Unmak Island, south 30 knots. Unalaska Island, east-southeast at 25. For the southwest coast, south of Nunivak Island, winds will be southwest 25 knots. Otherwise, along the Yukon Delta coast, north of Nunivak Island, east at 25 knots. Turn northeast at 20 for St. Matthew Island, west 15 for the Pribilofs. Gale warning, St. Lawrence Island, Norton Sound, east winds 35 to 40 knots. Outlook for Wednesday, Norton Sound, east 30, turn northeast 30 across St. Lawrence Island, down under gale force now, and south to southeast winds 20 knots for the southwest coast. And small craft advisories to Pribilof, south 25, southeast 30 for St. Matthew Island. And the eastern central Arctic coast, northeast winds 10 to 15 knots, but gale warning, say from Point Lay on down to Wales, all east 35 with 40 knot winds there from Cape Thompson to Wales. And then for Wednesday, northeast winds 25 knots, brisk wind advisories, Wales to Cape Thompson, Cape Beaufort, northeast 40, and then back down under gale force on the western Arctic coast, east 30, 20 knot winds for the central and eastern coast. And for tonight, very windy over the interior. High wind chill warnings continue for the Tanana Valley, big chunk of the central eastern interior areas, as well as the western Arctic coast till about midnight there, and then through the night for the central interior. Wind chill advisories just about everywhere else. And a high wind warning ends at midnight for or at 10 p.m. for Thompson Pass. And a heavy snow warning for the Juneau area till midnight for heavy snow. And snow increases along the southwest coast as winds diminish, and that weakening front pushes some snow into southern Cook Inlet across the Kuskokwim Valley. And then another system brings more moisture into the Panhandle late in the day Wednesday, and a weakening front out over the Bering Sea. That's all I've got time for. Thanks for joining us.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.